Welcome, friends, warrior sages. I have my new friend and immediate friend, Michael Stratford, with me today. And Michael, you've been a wonderful contributor to the Warrior Sage community page with your shares, feedback, reflections, insights. And that's how I came to really connect with you. And I felt the depth of your sagely wisdom,
Mm,
your groundedness, experience came very richly through your shares. And what I very much appreciate is the centeredness and the deep heart and the spectrum of breadth of life experience that you bring. And when we
mm.
connected, I wanted to share you more directly with our whole Warrior Sage community. So thanks for being here today, brother. Aho.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I, I appreciate the opportunity just to have a chat with you. It's great um, because there's just so much learning that can happen just out of a conversation about pretty much anything, and I've seen my recent expression as kind of from the point of a privileged witness, kind of watching it come through me. It's like, I don't feel like I'm in charge sometimes, in the sense that, it just kind of comes out and I go, oh, okay, post that. And so, you know, I think the thing that has most come home to me is how important it is for me to speak truly without being attached to any self-importance about what it is that I've said, you know. And I'm at an enviable age where actually my shirt kind of expresses it.
That's liberating, isn't it?
So it is, and it's happened for quite some time actually. And it just kept growing and deepening and growing and deepening. When I realized that really my if there is a contribution of me in the world, it's to be the purest essence of me. Because the one thing that I've been designed for that nobody else has. Lots of people have wisdom come through. There's lots of skill. There's lots of life experience. There's lots of data out there. I mean, God, Google anything. You know, so there's a lot of information. But the only thing I can contribute is me in this expression. So whatever that is, and then I think personally, my journey has been one of titration, constantly distilling and subtracting that which is not that elemental nature of me. Because I mean, you and I, we had a conversation. You know, we see how much we have consciously or unconsciously encoded. We've taken on into our knapsack that we carry on. We've acquired through life, and I started to work on subtracting it all. Because in the profession that I'm currently focused on coaching, the key is presence. It's who is doing the coaching makes a difference in what happens. It's not how skillful one's questions are, how astute your feedback is, or what model or thing you whip on somebody. It's who is bringing that to the table. So for me, presence is a function of absence. It's a function of what's not there. I don't know how we got here just now.
When there's less stuff going on, there's more stuff to be aware of what's going on.
Yes. And I think that you can be more acutely attuned to it with the less stuff going on, kind of like, like the silence over a lake, you know, uh, uh, at night, something goes, bloop, you can hear it. But for most of my life, it felt like what was going on in my head was a rave, just voices at a party with loud music, and I couldn't hear the whisper of wisdom for a second, because it was just all this stuff going on.
Michael, I'd love you to share with us, Warrior Sages, your journey. When I was chatting with you, it was just such a remarkable journey. Please give us some snippets of your journey.
Was there a particular piece that you felt would be of
Your
benefit?
acting phase and
Oh,
your theatrical phase, all of that.
oh, okay.
Very potent life lessons.
Yes,
With me.
yes. Over the course of my life, I've had 56 different jobs, and I thought that was, I got constantly labeled jack of all trades, master of none, and I didn't realize what was happening. Is that there was a seeking. I was learning tons. I mean, there were jobs all up and down the scale and all across the spectrum. So I learned how to be with a lot of different people, and without judgment. Still working on that with some. But I went into the field of acting because I was so harshly critical about who I was. I was so judgmental. I wanted to be anyone but me. I didn't want to be me. I didn't think there was anything there that was worth anything. I wanted to be someone else. I didn't like me very much. And oddly enough, I found myself through the theater, because I started to recognize all of the characters that can get expressed through me if I just give them permission, which is at times a little scary. But some of those I do not want on the stage having lines.
Yes.
The day I recognized that, yes, there's potentially a Charles Manson in me, I went, okay, in the wings, in the wings, in the wings. I get it, you're in the cast, but you don't get to talk to the audience. So that was part of it. But there was, I think, one part that was really key for me, because my work now seems to be focused on that uniqueness, that contribution I talked about. That the best thing that I can do is get to the most me I have, and then pour that into whatever I'm engaged with. But that didn't come easy, because it actually almost killed me. The transition of that, my sense of myself was so enmeshed with people's approval of me and their acceptance of me and their liking of me. Hence this shirt now. But but it at one point, and I was living in Manhattan, and I was doing lots of different jobs, 3 jobs at that time. One of them, which was painting apartments in high rises and that sort of thing. And seeing a therapist for abandonment issues, which I actually later became aware of, that the only person who really abandoned me was me. And that was crucial to know. Because even then I put it out to other people, And so I found myself one day with this frame, having become divorced. My child is living with someone else, having over age 40, not much of a future that I felt I could live into. Nothing seemed worth living into. And so it had all kind of accumulated. And I found myself on the ledge, in the window ledge of a building in the 33rd floor in Manhattan, going, okay, I don't have a life worth living. I'm just going to go. And I'm on my way out, so to speak. And again, the frame of reference, the thoughts that I remember at that time really kind of illuminated later what was going on in me. And one of those things was the woman whose apartment I was painting was going to be pissed that I didn't finish. That's how externally referenced I was. And that one didn't do anything. And then I looked down, and as I'm leaning out of the window, I thought, okay, the janitors, because there's a building roof that the janitors are going to have to clean up that mess and they'll be pissed. And I thought, okay. And that one didn't stop me. But the one that did gave me enough pause that said, well, my son is going to grow up with the stigma of a father who did that. And at that, I kind of caught the edges of the window. And while I'm still leaning, then, clearly it wasn't game over for me, because this next thought came in and said, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong that I don't have a future worth living into?
Yes.
Kind of an irrevocable choice I'm making here.
Yes.
And so that stopped me. And I backed in and I called my therapist and I said, I have to check myself into a hospital. I'm not safe for me. She says, okay, I'll get you checked in to Beth Israel. And then I do have to inform you that I won't be able to be your therapist because I don't work with suicides. And if you go back in the story, you remember what it was that I was seeing her for, which was abandonment. And it was almost like she caught my thought right then. She says, but I'm not abandoning you. I'll find you another therapist. And so I checked in. I was in the hospital for a while, and there's lots of stories there. But there's lots of stories there. But one story in particular was a crucial one for me, a pivotal one for me. And that was, they had this room that we could gather in. It was called the rec room. Now, for that, it was short for recreation, but it was really, we're all emotional wrecks. So that's where we were. We were in the rec room. And, every now and again, I would see one of the people who just had a real issue with John Denver at the time, who would, whenever he came on TV, the guy would put his foot through the TV. He would just screaming, John Denver, John Denver! And he'd put his foot through the TV, and that would be the end of it. And then he'd go to the quiet room. But I was, pretty much I had isolated. And one day I found on the shelf a jigsaw puzzle. And it said on the box, or wrote on the box, 10,000 pieces. There was no box top, so I had no picture. Which is, hard. And I used to be really good at jigsaw puzzles, when I was a kid. And, you and I probably would approach it in a similar fashion. You get the flat edge pieces all around the outside. You get color patterns. If you have a box top, you refer to it for the pictures, and that kind of gives you clarity, and you do that.
Yes.
Something said no this time.
Huh.
And so I dumped them all out on the table, and I put my hand in there and I picked up one, put it right in the center of the table. And then I picked up another one and went, does that fit? Nope, put it over there. Does that fit? Nope, put it over there. Does that fit? Nope, put it over there. Eventually got to one that fit, because it's got four sides, there's one of them somewhere in there that's going to be one that fits.
So you pick one up and then you just another one.
One at a time, and then one at a time. And then I had two. And then I kept building on that with the same process, one at a time. And then over time, it was odd. I was kind of the hero of the ward, because they saw me and it finished, and I got cheers when I finished the puzzle. But the puzzle itself, I don't even remember what the picture was. It didn't matter, because eventually things, seemed to clarify and go clunk in my space, and I found myself out. And I went back to my apartment, and I looked at my apartment that I had spent with my ex-wife. And I went, I hate that sofa. I never liked that sofa. I only bought it because she wanted it.
Mm.
I hate that wall color. I don't like that wall color. Only did that because, and so what happened for me was, in retrospect, I saw that I was that piece.
Yes.
And I had shifted in the continuum of fit. There's, at least in my observation, there's three stages. Force yourself into a fit, round peg, square hole, for whatever reasons. Find some place where you fit better than the first, but actually still not optimal, because it assumes that the hole is right, not you, the peg.
Yes.
I went to the third place, which was I, the strangely shaped peg, was looking for that which fit me.
Yes.
And that in itself started to honor who I was, which the whole self-acceptance level, warts and all, started to just come flooding in. And I went, okay, yeah, I'm a strangely shaped peg. Let me find out what fits me. I knew the sofa didn't. I knew that wall color didn't. But I then did a thorough examination all over my life, friends, thoughts, books, places, all that sort of stuff. And I started subtracting that which did not feel like it fit me. Like the best, and I now call it the shoe test. Think of the best pair of shoes that you ever wore. And even if that is no shoes, if everything had to fit you on that scale, geographic location, people you're with, career, if it had to fit you like the best pair of shoes that you felt you could run in, walk in, play in, do anything in, that's a fit. Most of the time, I'd spent my life wearing shoes that gave me blisters after 50 feet. Whether that was a job, or whether that was a girlfriend or a wife. I had 2 practice marriages before the one I have now. And I realized that I needed to really get clear about who I was. And I did that by the process of what fit me, that titration. This is, no. And I started to see some things 75% fit, 25%. Once I started to get my whole scale up, and I started to move that up, I went, okay. Because I had some things that were really below the 50% bar. They went fast. They're really fast. And
So it's a process of letting go until you come into the center of who you really are, your resonance, where everything aligns and you're dropped in knowing you're in the right spot in the right place.
yes, with the right people, with the right concepts, with the right path. And it is, I call it elemental nature. It's like an element on the periodic table. At a certain point, hydrogen is just hydrogen.
Yes.
It's no longer water. It's not no longer hydrogen sulfide. It's some other compound. It's just hydrogen. And I wanted to get to, like, on the periodic table, ME, me, whatever that was. And that process was a long journey. And eventually, that led me out of the acting world, but it also led me into the world of coaching, where my first mentor, because I was still in flux in this, and I'd taken a lot of programs. I mean, I've been processed more than Velveeta, with all of those things. And, invariably when their systems didn't work for me, it all came back at me as some sort of character flaw. I didn't pursue it hard enough. I wasn't diligent enough. I didn't dig in. I wasn't thorough. I wasn't committed. It couldn't be that their system didn't fit me. It was something was wrong with me, was the message. And you still see that all over the internet. If you can't make their system work, it's not their system. It's you. You're flawed. You're broken. So I had a friend who was new in the profession of coaching. And he said, I think you should go to this workshop. I said, okay. Okay, I trust you. I'll go. And it was on coaching. This guy was teaching coaching 1992.
92.
Yes. And it was in one of those Greenwich Village apartments where at that point in time, we were carpeting platforms and calling that furniture. Remember that trend?
Yeah.
So we're all sitting around on carpeted boxes.
Yes.
And so the guy asks for a volunteer and I go, okay, yeah. Okay, let me have it. Do this, whatever this coaching thing is on me, find out, tell me where I'm flawed so that this is one more success system I can't use. And so he says, so what's your situation? And I said, this is what I'm wrestling with. He says, So when you've been successful in the past, what methodology did you use? And I swear I sat there blinking like Eeyore. It's like nobody had ever asked me a question like that. Because when you look at it, it's got a few assumptions in it. Number
Yes.
one, it assumes I'm successful, which if I'm still on the planet, that's true, and that I might have some methodology that was repeatable. And if I looked hard enough, I might find it and be
Yes.
able to use it. And so I kind of fumbled out an answer. And he says, so when you came into um, obstacles, what character traits did you draw on to overcome them? Eeyore again. And then I said, okay, a few things. And over the process of 15 minutes, what he did was he helped return me to me
Yes.
more than any therapist had ever done. Not to say that therapy wasn't good. I did have a good one later. But he returned me to me because he was honoring me from the start. He was viewing me as if I was a one-of-a-kind creature plunked down in front of him, and he was a scientist, and he was studying me, and he was going to draw out what was me
Yes.
to me. And I went, oh, this is freaking cool. I want to do this. And that's when I started studying coaching. It was like right then. And that path has just been continuous. So that combination has led me here for quite a while. I have no desire, to fit in. I have a desire to participate and contribute as the unique expression of divine diversity that I am.
Mm.
Because it's not sufficient for me to just go, oh yeah, I'm just going to be me and that's it. I cannot deny or refute that I am part of a collective energy in the world. So, I like to support people's uniqueness so that they can contribute more effectively to the collective. Because, I mean, you think of it, whatever the word is you use, God, nature, the divine source, oneness, I don't care. Took the time and trouble to make one of these. Why not contribute that in some way? And so I did a lot of subtraction on the inside as well as to what it was that I was attached to, because I realized that probably after age 5, I was like a vacuum cleaner just acquiring attachments, you know, sucking them up. Oh, good. I need a longer hose. I'll suck it. I'll put that in. I need something to get in corners. I'll put that attachment on. And so I've spent, and still do, spend a bit of time seeking to subtract attachments so that while I see myself as a portal, a conduit for whatever at one point someone might term wisdom or simply perspective or observation or whatever, that means that portal needs to be as clean and clear of, I guess the technical term would be schmutz, as anything. It's got to be clear. It will always be in a unique flavor because that's how I've been constructed. I don't know if you remember those old flavor straws.
Yes.
Yes, like you sucked the milk through, and the flavor was in the straw.
Yes.
So you suck the milk through. So if the milk of consciousness comes through the flavor straw called me, it's going to get flavored.
Yes.
I just want to make sure to my best ability that it is only the flavor that is this and not the flavor of something I've acquired over time that pollutes the flavor.
Yes. Beautiful.
So that's kind of the journey that I'm on and have been on, and I appreciate your asking me to come and be with your community today. It's always a privilege to get an opportunity to be heard, hopefully in a way that you contribute. Hopefully that someone out there has found something useful in this, even if it's how not to be. I ain't gonna be like that guy. I don't want to be that guy. And, you know, and uh, while I used to be a really great chameleon
Uh-huh.
when I was younger, because I didn't want to be me, I had to blend in, find it. I was a great chameleon. I now have reached the ultimate for me, which is I suck at being other people.
I
I'm terrible at it.
think we all are.
And it's funny that oddly enough, the intuitive self has come so much more cleanly and clearly and strongly through. And I kind of attribute that to, if I can get my frequency, my signal on the radio, my station on the radio, really pure, like it's pure me. It's 96.42758. The signal that wants to come through just for that station can in a much easier way. So this whole gravity towards this uniqueness has allowed the intuition that is there to come through me to come through in a much more beneficial and cleaner way. Whereas before I would go, is that my intuition? Is that somebody else's beliefs I'm thinking about? What's going on there? How do I know? I don't have that how do I know anymore. So that's what I look to do. And I think part of what attracted me to where you all are playing is you're looking at the world in, at least from my observation on the outside, the community is looking at the world through what I would call there's another great community that does this, science and non-duality space.
Yes.
And I love their logo, by the way, which is, for those of you who don't know it, Ohm is the symbol for Ohm equals MC squared. That's their logo, which is, it's so fabulous because that fits me.
Yes.
The combination of the spiritual and the practical,
Yes.
I don't see them at war. I see them as aligned and coming at the game from two different places, but nevertheless, they're still part of one expression. Because to me, there's also not a light side and a dark side. There's only the labels of those, So,
Same thing, different viewpoint.
exactly. It's like people go, oh, oneness is all light. I go, oh, you and I have a different definition of the word oneness then, because there's not a dark oneness and a light oneness. Oneness is oneness. It's just a one. So somewhere in the design of me, there has been a bit, I guess, an energy or a curiosity, or it just seems to be built into sort of poke constructs. Which is why when I was doing more presentations for conferences and things, one of my favorites was called Provoke, Evoke, or Go Home.
Ah.
Because you're either going to provoke the challenges of limitations or you're going to evoke someone's essential self. And if not, if you're just going to stand up there and recite the data that you think is important for people, go home. Just, you could put a little cardboard of you and a little tape behind it and just play it. Because it means something that you're in front of people.
Yes.
And those people, that collective group, means something different from the last collective group, even if you're there with the same presentation. So their participation matters. It changes everything. But if it's a canned thing, oh, spare me. I'll just go home and watch, Netflix. I think the other thing that was with those was my principle that if I could get it in your book, then I don't need to be there.
Yes.
So if somebody's going to bring it to me, I don't want to just hear your book. Why bother? It's like I don't need to come to a workshop for like $800, $500, $300. I'll go to Amazon, get a Kindle version, done.
There's a tremendous power in actual experiences over, in our work, we use this adage of contact is the carrier wave of content. And so many times we're thought, and we have this imprint that our content of who we are as offerings is so valuable. And we forget, as you've been sharing so beautifully today, it's the contact from like us, who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Sans all the make believe and all the posturing and all the facades and all the ways that we're sort of peering behind identity that is experiencing this, like right here, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, contact.
Yes. The content is never the point. It's never really the point. Because if it doesn't travel on the wave of human expression, so what? You know, I've got content all over the place. When I'm training coaches in China, which is where I do most of the work right now, um, I actually do hold up the manual and I go, yeah, this course not in here. It's going to be out of our interactions and how we do it. That's a reference guide. But I said, there is no one who will learn how to ride a bicycle by understanding the laws of physics and motion, by hearing anecdotes about how to do it, by watching someone how to do it, by being told how to do it. You cannot learn how to ride a bicycle until you feel balance in your being. You can't manufacture balance in a theory. It's got to be in the contact between you and bike and the earth and nature and speed and gravity. It's got to be in that. Otherwise, you don't truly learn it. You acquire data points about it. Yeah, so I'm absolutely with you on the experiential piece. Yes.
Michael, I wanted to ask you, in your work around the world in China, training coaches, we're in this time of COVID, we're in this time of
Mm.
unknown, uncertainty, all this. It's changing day by day. Please share with me what your sense of all that's going on here is, how you're seeing it affect those around you, and where you feel where we could be heading. It would be a supportive inner disposition for us as leaders, impact makers, to cultivate.
So there are several things that come to mind. One is that it feels more like evolution than change. That we're leaving behind a self that doesn't work. It's not suited for the future that's coming toward us. It's just not. Whether that be something like, instead of seeing people with autism as an aberration, including autism as a difference and perhaps has some elements of evolution that are going to be required. It's that kind of frame. The other thing that occurs to me, and especially for people who are in roles of leadership, is where are you asking the questions about moving forward from? Who is the you that is asking those questions? Where are you asking them from? If we're asking them from fear, they will produce a certain type of questions. If we're asking them from curiosity, that will produce a certain type of questions. If we're asking them from confidence, that will produce. If we're asking them from a cultural context that wants the world to work for everyone, what's the limitation of that question? because in its own frame, it assumes that the world, that we actually have a vision of what that looks like, a real one. You know, so I go back to the, where am I asking it from before I find out what question I'm asking? Because that's just going to inform everything. Who is the me that's asking this question? And so I wonder, what do I see for the future? There's a small me who sees some beneficial changes. There's a small me who has a fear that movements like Black Lives Matter and social justice will be abandoned by white people yet again. There's a small me there asking that question. And one could put in indigenous people into that, or one could put in LGBTQ trans. You could put, that a there's a different, and I don't know how small it is, but there is a different me that's asking, what would the world truly be like if the system of white supremacy disappeared? What would it truly be like? What would it truly be like? And I have no idea. What would it truly be like if we actually got over the illusion of separateness? Not as a theory, not as a concept, but in reality. And we started to engage with people and nature like we are entangled, which we are. But what would the world truly be like if that actually manifested? I get curious about things like that. And then the other question is, what's my part? What's my part? I'm clear that any shift has me as a moat in it. One moat. I have to do the job of my moat, whatever that is, which means I have to get clear what that is. Whether that's in the phraseology of stay in my lane and do that, what is clear? Without the attachment to whatever momentary clarity I have, defining it as if it's a for all time thing. Because that, to me, has a danger to it. Then I become self-identified with X. And that becomes a mission. And then the minute I focus, as is always true, the minute we focus hard on anything, we create blind spots automatically. Automatically. It's inevitable. Focus on the driving in front of you through the windshield, you can't see back here. That's why we have rear view mirrors, side view mirrors. So the challenge is how to have sufficient clarity of where my participation is, put appropriate attention on that without an attachment to the outcome. Because I don't know what's right for the future. I don't. I don't. I think if you'd asked me when I was 25, I would have. Yeah, I know how it should be. This is what should happen. Get rid of nuclear. Blah, blah, blah. I was, marching against Vietnam at that time. And I had my tie-dye shirt and my long hair, and I'd been kicked out of school for being under the influence of marijuana. And I was just full of myself. And so I don't know. The only way, and I did share this with you in our conversation, the only way I know how to move now is that I seek as often as possible to be in a state of silence inside and wait for the voice to say, step here. And I do. And then it says, step here.
This is what I've seen in you strongly. in a very humble way, without type of brandishing yourself in any way. I've seen you post quite frequently on um, the disparity and the horrors of the black family, our world family. And I've seen you post a lot in the realm of Black Lives Matter. Can you share why that called you specifically, and what your feeling is around that whole realm?
I think I have to attribute a lot of that to my father, who was a mounted sheriff. And my parents were divorced. That was kind of, and in my small town, I felt this, my smaller version of injustice. Because my mom was a single mom. You didn't do that at that time. We ran a boarding house, or she ran a boarding house for someone else. I actually shoveled coal in the furnace at nights, very Dickens. Um, and, we were poor. And so there was a lot of that as part of it. I lived in a rural area with a lot of migrant workers um, uh, who also I watched get discriminated against regularly. And yet something in me just didn't see why. Because Emilio and I would go out and we'd sit in the tomato fields and pick a fresh tomato with some hot, that was still hot from the sun. Take one of those little Morton salt things and shake it. We'd sit there and we'd eat. And I didn't say why. Didn't cognitively register. So that was an element of it. But at that time, I didn't see my father much. And so later, when I was 17, and I fled that town. I basically fled because I knew that I would die there. It was
Mm,
it was a small town thinking, small town opinions, small town views, small town morals, small town small.
yes.
Um, and I saw things differently. So my father at that point, because I could, he invited me. Now I was 17, I could go live with him in California. He'd been really, really hardcore conservative. He worked in construction. He worked in engineering. He wanted me to be an engineer. He'd been this mounted sheriff. Um, and he designed runways that for this company that used for the military in Saudi Arabia, etc. And somewhere in that time period, which is late 60s, he had an epiphany of some kind. I don't quite know what the stimulus was, but he did. He flipped. He went the other side, so to speak. He started to smoke dope. He started to hang out. He joined the Peace and Freedom Party. I came out and we had conversations, and he turned me on to Huey Newton and Eldridge Cleaver and a bunch of other people. Um, and he turned me on to that, and so I got to see that, and also to a lot of things from the indigenous world. And I got to see that, and I started to question what I had been raised with. And then there were a number of nights that we would spend on the beaches in Southern California. He had an RV, and he would share how ashamed he was of himself, having been in the police force doing what he did, and the brutality that he both employed and had witnessed. And I don't think he ever actually forgave himself for that. But he would cry and he would weep, and I was there with him. And I could see that it was just wrong. I'd had my own small flavor of it, and I felt that, and I could see the larger flavor of that. And I went, I can't imagine what that's like. And so um, he later turned, he says, he went all, you know, turning to live with nature. He went to live with animals. He says, animals, I don't want to be among human beings anymore. He says, animals are true. They're not deceitful. You may not like that it's a rattlesnake, but it's showing you what it is. It's not pretending to be your friend when it isn't.
Yes.
And so that was one of those things that stirred me. And then as things continued over time, and that went away for a while through my own journey of being myself. And he died shortly thereafter, at 51. But then, it just sort of grew as a seed in me. He had planted a seed about injustice and about not being real, not being genuine, and the encounter of that. Over time, it just grew. I would say it just grew. And as the atrocities have continued, and as we have now even captured them more and more, bless Will Smith for his quote. This is not new. It's just now we have cameras, and it has become so strong a voice that I have to own my participation in the system, conscious and unconscious. I didn't choose this form, but I'm participating with it. So I get to choose how I participate with it. And I can see what it has done around the world. And I don't see racism in this country as endemic to this country, although it is in the DNA of America. I see it as a European export. It came on the Mayflower. It came in every ship that brought a slave over. It came in the way we approached the people of the indigenous. It came with them because they didn't notice. And I now know that I can't afford to not notice, because it's now right in my face. And I'm making all the mistakes that one can make as a white man. I mean, I'm in that, I may not be in the rich part of the privileged class, but I'm in that privileged class and I know it. So I have a job. This is part of my participation. This is part of my moat.
Thank you. Thank you. Michael?
Yes.
What's in your heart to share, to take us home today? What's in your deepest heart to share as warrior sages and those of us who are walking a path of aiming to live our highest truths and aiming to make a good walk on this planet?
I would say that there are two things. And it's just basics. One is for those people in the community who are white, keep doing the work inside to dismantle first the system here. So that we can do our part. And then for people of color, I would say I have nothing to offer and everything to learn from you about how to move forward. Thank you.
Michael, I'm so grateful for you showing up today and sharing so deeply and richly from your life experience and your stories, which I can just feel how they open up portals and capacities and potentials and possibilities in myself, and I'm sure many of us listening. So thank you for the expression of your life wisdom. And how can our friends get in touch with you if they want to know more about yourself and what you're up to?
Um, I guess the simplest way would be I can put it here.
We'll put it up on the comments area.
Yes, I'll put it up there. If anybody wants to chat, I'm happy to listen, and learn. Um, yeah. Oh, I do want to share one other thing.
Yes, please. My honor.
There is a game that I'll be launching soon, and this game is called The Heart of It. It's a transformational game, but this game is called Million Quest. And million is defined as positively affecting the lives of 1 million sentient beings.
Mm.
It's not anything that's anywhere near. I'll be launching in China in 2021, I believe. And it's not an app. It's not one of those games. It is an experiential thing. But that's what's become clear, is to positively affect the lives of 1 million people. And that's the game I'm in right now. 1 million sentient beings. I'm working hard with opening that space for like gnats and mosquitoes.
That's beautiful. And opening up this whole energy of million quest. I believe if we all were to take on,
A million quest.
yes,
Yes. And
then change is not only inevitable, this transformation, this
yes.
of our collective bar, our joy with each other ultimately.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when we start thinking and feeling and embracing, can I even have the possibility to make an effect that way? Even in my heart, even if I'm sitting here, even if
Yeah.
whatever age, whatever limitation, whatever, that I still can. That I still can. That changes everything. So,
Yes. You're welcome. And it comes with the recognition that no one wins any game alone.
yes, yes.
So thank you for the time. Thank you to those who've listened. I hope something of this has been useful for you. And whatever fits is like a shoe. If it fits, it fits. If it doesn't, don't put it on.
All my love, Michael. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Satyen.
much. Bye.
Bye.